don't miss it for nothing. 20 years ago or better, the Harley Rider was kind of a unique individual. Today, they're white-collar workers during the day and bikers at night. The people are really receptive of us. It gives you chills. It's like almost like a hero's welcome. Like a religion almost. You're going home to where you came from. Last time there was a whole bunch of people on the freeway. They'd actually come down right onto the freeway and try and give you high fives. This is it. This is life.
The concerto is by Mozart. The performance by Milwaukee symphony player Jennifer Start. But before there was music, another's hands plied their trade.
It's a very gradual process. All of a sudden, you're from a block of wood, you're sculpting something.
Brian Derber of Oconomowoc never learned to play the violin.
I started too late in life.
He was always too busy working with wood.
I got a master's degree in industrial education. I use what's known as a cooked oil varnish.
At one time, Brian even thought of becoming a cabinet maker.
Sometimes you have to do a little finger painting just to even things out a little bit.
No cabinet has ever sounded like this.
The response is so quick on it, the notes just pop out. The sound kind of sparkles to me.
Jennifer Start is one of about 40 musicians who now own Derber violins. Not a large number, until you consider Brian only makes 6 violins a year.
I'm not in it to mass produce instruments.
Brian has been rewarded for his attention to detail. A new Derber violin now sells for $7,000, a bargain to Jennifer Start.
I had been looking for a violin for about 2 or 3 years, I guess, and I had tried many violins. I think I tried 100 violins, much more expensive, in a much more expensive price range. And a colleague of mine had played one of these, and I tried it, and it was great. I loved it.
It took a man who can't play a violin to make the best one Jennifer Start had heard. And now Jennifer and Brian and Mozart are making beautiful music together. Boyd Hooper, 6's News, Milwaukee.
This is not a scene you associate with a festive weekend, but it is one we should remember as the firecrackers and barbecues ring in Independence Day. Tech Sergeant Patrick Fenig was eulogized today as being red, white, and blue to the bone.
Andy was so humble. He really rarely spoke about his accomplishments and about what he was doing, kind of sacrifices he was making.
When Major Michael Kutze talks about Fenig, he does so not only as an Air Force major, but as a cousin to the 34-year-old killed in Saudi Arabia last month. At the funeral mass in Fenwick's hometown of Greendale, one of the readings was a letter from St. Paul. No one dies for oneself, the phrase goes. It is a phrase poignant for a military man. A phrase Kutse hopes we remember this weekend.
I could hope for nothing higher than for people to at least spend one moment, one pause, to think about those of us in the service, in dangerous places like we are every day of the year.
Patrick Fenwick was in one of those dangerous places, but he didn't have to be. He volunteered for his mission to Saudi Arabia, and he died, likely because a terrorist didn't want him there. As his cousin, the Major, told mourners on this Independence Day Eve, this is a cold reminder that freedom is not free.
Well, right there, and the deer flew from the left and just landed inside.
Construction worker Ernesto Sanchez couldn't believe what he was seeing. A deer trapped in the home's foundation. Onlookers predicted the deer was doomed.
I hope that they save the deer.
The landowner, Nick Cascarano, wanted to try a different method.
He's still up and doing all right. I see some blood.
He called Scott Deal, the Wisconsin Humane Society's wildlife manager.
Well, let me go get some gear.
Scott's dealt with urban wildlife before.
We've got a stretcher here. We can strap him on the stretcher. I've got a tarp. We can put him in the tarp, get some ropes or some such thing, and keep him out.
Scott uses a gun with tranquilizer darts. Within 5 minutes, the deer is out cold.
We're going to need a rope to pull him with.
Even the North Shore Fire Department joins in the rescue, carefully lifting the deer out.
You're caught on a rope.
Scott says in most cases like this, deer survive.
You guys take them back.
He can't say how this one will do, but he knows they did all they could.
Now save it.
Right, we'll do our best.
In Brown Deer, Leslie Knopp, 6's News.
One of the rarest planes is the B-17. Almost 13,000 were made. Just 9 are still flying. And this is one of the most authentic. Its nickname is the Flying Fortress, a name well deserved.
In the very early days, the German pilots had kind of a field day because there was no guns in the tail of the airplane. Well, the Americans found out very quickly that they needed to have a tail gunner back there, and so there's guns out the front, out the side, out the top, out the bottom. So it truly is a true flying fortress.
Seeing these planes and talking to their pilots is nothing short of a living history lesson.
As opposed to just letting it be in a museum, we like to take it out to places like Milwaukee and let people come and see and hear and smell the old airplanes as they were meant to be in flying condition.
Jobst is proud to show off this B-17 and tell the tales of the heroic crews who helped win World War II.
To see the cramped spaces that they had to work in at the high altitudes and the very cold temperatures, you really have a very special feeling for these young men and how they actually survived it. And thank God they did.
Jay Graham, who got Jay Graham?
They watch like a room full of Vegas bookies.
It's so unpredictable, it's incredible. Just seeing who takes who, seeing who takes the long shot.
If you're Mike Holmgren, you have the war room, a place to call the shots. If you're Jake Struhelka or Pete Lewis, you have the bar.
I think Wolf's looking at a deal, maybe.
Everybody has a wish list.
I'd like to see him pick up a linebacker.
And for some, the Packers' first-round choice was not their choice.
Green Bay Packers select Ross Verba.
Oh, no!
But there's room for other opinions.
So you can play him over at guard in case Taylor's knee goes out.
Some are just here for a good time.
I'm here to drive everybody home.
Others will tell you, this is my life.
This is serious business. I mean, you're looking at maybe some potential Hall of Famers.
So they order another round and wait for the second round. The Packers pick Darren Sharper.
I don't know who he is, but I have faith in Ron Wolf. Not blind faith, but I do have faith.
And have faith when I tell you these guys will be back here next year.
In the midst of all this madness, silenced by the drone of chainsaws and heavy machinery moving through town, the wind rushes through a little oak tree.
Oak trees for Oakfield.
A gift from the village to commemorate 150 years.
Everybody planted them, and
Very few grew, but that one did.
Jimmy Knowles even survived the storm, unlike nearly every other tree on his property.
Just to give you an idea of the quirky nature of tornadoes, that little birdhouse and those pots were left untouched, but just 5 feet over, a 25-foot locust was sucked out of the ground, just leaving a hole.
50 members of the Army National Guard from as far away as Onalaska arrived Saturday morning, hauling away the heavy stuff for tired people.
We will stay here as long as we can clean the debris off the streets and so on.
Daily briefings at the high school keep residents informed and reassured.
And there's not a problem with showering, we feel, using the current water supply. But
Wisconsin Power and Light has electricity restored to about a third of the village. However, the central part of Oakfield, the hardest hit, will be in the dark for some time yet. And that's now setting in for James Rohde. He has clothes hanging upstairs and food standing in the pantry, but will eventually tear the house down.
Now what happens is you come back and you say you're going to go home, but then you come out here and look and you don't have a home.
Still, humor has not been lost. From the reference to the Wizard of Oz to the tongue-in-cheek invitation from Kay and Jim nailed to a tree. Another day has passed and Jimmy Knowles' little oak tree wrapped in masking tape is still standing.
I don't know if it's going to make it or not. Okay. I think it will.
Oakfield, like that tree, is determined to make it. Jeff Mirasola, 6 News, Oakfield.